Well, let's see. Gunpowder, nitroglycerin, notepads, fuses, wicks, glue, and paper clips. Big ones. You know, just office supplies. I'm John Ritlin with the retro review of Atlantis, The Lost Empire, a severely underappreciated late entry into Disney's animated catalog. Once, when they were still doing hand-drawn animation mixed with some computerized stuff. But this was one of those movies that I think got lost in their catalog of pretty damn good animated movies. There's no musical numbers. I mean, there's, music in it, but there's no, singing like there was in The Jungle Book or Robin Hood or Lion King or Aladdin or Beauty and the Beast or any of those, or Hunchback of Notre Dame. How they tried to turn that into a kids' movie, I have no idea. With this, you have the character of Milo, voiced by Michael J. Fox, who is studying the lost city of Atlantis, what happened to it. He had a grandfather who did the same thing. His grandfather eventually, got kind of laughed into obscurity, essentially, but he always believed that Atlantis existed. And from there, you have Milo basically being laughed at as well, and then he happens upon an older man that knew his grandfather that wants to fund an expedition to find out where Atlantis is, if there's actually anything, and, all this stuff. He wants to find out if the grandfather was telling the truth because he believed in him. What I like about this movie is that it's gritty and there's even some violence in it. You get some death, you get some stuff that you normally wouldn't get from Disney animated movies. Even though quite a few of them are dark, this one just felt grittier. Also, James Garner is the main villain, because of course he fucking is. And there's a lot of good, voice acting in this. I like the character of Vinny, the explosives expert, and you get the usual cast of characters. You get the strange one, Mole, who likes to dig, because of course he does. And you get the doctor, that's named Sweet. And it's actually kind of funny, because he says at one point, you don't want to know Mole's, story. And says one other character, you told me, and you shouldn't have told me, and now I'm telling you not to tell him. And Milo's a nerdy guy that has studied the Atlantean language and figures out this stuff, but he's learning as he goes, because he's not really, as much as he desires to be an explorer, he's not really built for combat. He's not really built to, go on expeditions and stuff like that, because he's a bit of a loner. And, being made fun of him, feeling sheltered, he doesn't really, it's not that he doesn't trust people, because he's well-intentioned, but he doesn't feel like he fits in with this group. And this group obviously has some sinister desires, and there is, once they get to Atlantis, after a robotic Leviathan-like creature attacks their sub and they have to escape and more people die. Holy shit, that was a lot of goddamn explosive death. They get to Atlantis, and, go through a whole bunch of stuff like, fireflies that burn down their tents, and more death and more destruction. A lot of death and destruction in this. It should have been called Death and Destruction of Atlantis, the musical. Just without, the musical numbers once again. Once they get to Atlantis, it takes a bit, for everybody to really get ingratiated with them. And the only character that anybody trusts is Milo. And you have the main character, Kita, who earlier in the movie saw her mother assumed basically into heaven to save Atlantis from total destruction. But it was on the surface and it got sunk into the water. And that's our story. That's basically what happens. Now, Kita and Milo bond, and then she eventually, gets this power bestowed upon her. But the crew, of course, is evil. Well, I mean, James Garner and his sidekick Helga are. And they decide to capture the power and take it back to the surface for a big old sum of money. Big shit pot full of money. But the crew decides to stay basically behind, and then they battle back to try and get Kita before she is taken to the surface and everything goes eventually tits up. So what I like about this, though, is besides the usual, moving away from the tropes, you get a sense of good characters with it, with flaws. Everybody has a reason as to why they would want the money. Some want to open up, a business. Some want to, help out their family. Some just basically want the money and are drunk with power. Hence James Garner's character, who plays the villain pretty goddamn well here. And Michael J. Fox is perfect as the voice of the nerdy Milo. And really the whole cast is actually pretty goddamn good. And it just has that cool feel about it where if you didn't see the Disney, if you didn't see the Disney logo at the beginning, you actually wouldn't even classify this as a Disney movie. It just has a very unique style to it. And the hand-drawn animation and the style of it is very beautiful. The exploration scenes, the energy that comes from the crystals, the Atlantean culture, all of it just is wrapped up in a nice, neat little package that has aged pretty damn well. And while not, the most perfect Disney movie, is one of the last great ones they did. Now, Treasure Planet also is a pretty good one, and that'll be a review up at some point. This one did better than Treasure Planet, I will say that much. But I just really like this movie, and it just hits that nostalgia sweet spot where, yeah, I was, 20, 21 years old when this movie came out, and I just enjoy it. I just found a whole lot of fun with it. And sure, it's a simple story, and obviously Milo stays after Kita gets rescued. And then they did, Atlantis 2, Electric Boogaloo. And, you get the typical direct-to-video Disney quality and stuff like that. It isn't bad, but it isn't great. But the movie just has a nice feel to it. It has a nice pace to it. And as simple as it is and as, cliched as it is, you get, the battle between the villains and and the heroes, the Atlanteans that did not know that this power existed, and they did not know how to operate these vehicles that have been sitting there for a while, use these crystals to basically chase people, villains on giant fish, and rescue one of their own. It is kind of funny how that happens, but Milo is there to show them the way, and then he decides to stay, as I said. So it's a pretty nice movie. It's by no means perfect. It is pretty simple, and the villain is dispatched awfully quickly. I mean, he gets stabbed with, a piece of glass that's infused with this Atlantean power. And then he is turned into, this energy crazy being, and then gets destroyed by blades, helicopter blades within, or hot air balloon blades within 30 seconds. So it's kind of fucking hilarious there. But it's still a nice movie with some good humor, and I really like the character of Vinny. I think that this is a perfect movie to watch if you don't want to just see a typical Disney movie. There's nothing wrong with typical Disney movies, but sometimes it's good to think outside the box, and that's what this one does. It's really goddamn fun. So I would love to know what you guys have to say in the comments. Did you enjoy Atlantis? Do you think it holds up well? Did you not care for it at all? And what other animated movies would you like me to review? Especially if they're on Disney Plus, or if they're on, say, Netflix or something like that or whatever. Let me know, and I would love to review them for you. Like, share, subscribe, Twitter handle in the description. I'm John Ritlin. I'll see you soon.